Scrapping the triple lock on state pensions? Madness.
Andrew, we just can't carry on pretending the numbers just don't add up. We've got to be honest with people. We've got to face the facts. That's what people want.
Well, that's what you get on GB News and on Britain's Newsroom. Lively debates, lively conversation.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first, and we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's News Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
isn't it?
no,
Because the failure is...
you're
the failure is...
deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
isn't it?
because
the failure is...
You're
the failure is...
deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's midnight in the UK, 7 p.m. here in Washington, D.C. I'm Bev Turner, and this is The Late Show Live. On The Late Show Live tonight.
And this government have let us down so badly, we are now seeing more closures than ever before. We're losing a pub a day because of this government, because of the way they're taxing us, the national insurance increase,
Mutiny in the Labour Party. Manchester Mayor Andy Burnham has revealed that MPs want him to oust Keir Starmer as Prime Minister, and that was his former advisor and ally, Sacha Lord, attacking the government for destroying the hospitality industry. Is Starmer about to go?
This needs to stop. Violence is wrong. Politically motivated violence is wrong.
2 dead and 1 injured in a shooting at an illegal immigration detention facility in Texas. And just moments ago, Donald Trump said that he will sign an executive order to dismantle radical left terrorists who he says are perpetuating this latest violence. We're going to be talking to former Trump press secretary Sean Spicer to discuss that and a lot more. Plus,
my concerns, as I say, and they're serious concerns, are about the approach to the economy of the Reform Party and the approach on national security.
Nigel Farage, a threat to national security. That's the allegation from former Prime Minister and creator of the immigration wave, Boris Johnson. Who do you prefer?
I think President Trump has shown he is racist, he is sexist, he is misogynistic, and he's Islamophobic.
That is London Mayor Sadiq Khan, of course, firing back at Donald Trump after the US president's Sharia law claim.
The President of the United States made it very clear he wants to see me and the hundreds of people who work here fired from our jobs. Our leader celebrates Americans losing their livelihoods because he can't take a joke.
The now uncancelled Jimmy Kimmel returns to the screen and hits back at the president. Stay tuned for the full clip. I'm Bev Turner. This is The Late Show Live, and your night's just getting started. So it looks like Sir Keir Starmer is under threat.
Association. Hospitality is the 5th biggest sector in the whole of the UK, Nigel, with the 3rd largest employer. And this government have let us down so badly, we are now seeing more closures than ever before. We're losing a pub a day because of this government, because of the way they're taxing us, the national insurance increase that nobody saw coming, by the way. That was the final nail in the coffin. We're now touching £6.50 on average for a pint. I mentioned the current leader, and he is not right for the party. And I have to tell you, the amount of Labour members, the amount of Labour councillors that reached out to me privately yesterday to say, do you know what? Thank God that somebody has actually spoken out and said what we are thinking. And it had to be said. That is the feeling at the moment amongst members.
That is top Labour advisor Sacha Lord. He was talking on GB News earlier and hinted at backing Andy Burnham to replace the Prime Minister. Well, breaking this evening, Andy Burnham has said that Labour MPs want him to topple Sir Keir Starmer. It's the front page of tomorrow's Daily Telegraph. Meanwhile, a bitter row has broken out between Boris Johnson and the favourite to replace the Prime Minister, Nigel Farage.
My concerns, as I say, and they're serious concerns, are about the approach to the economy of the Reform Party and the approach on national security. And I think both of those will be severely tested in the years ahead, and people will actually want serious answers. And I think that the answers are going to be Conservative answers. And ask yourself, do you want the UK either to be led by Labour, who have a huge number of their grassroots who are still basically pro-Moscow, Corbynista, right? Or do you want this Reform gang who are on record as saying that NATO provoked Putin's aggression?
Do you care about what he says, Boris Johnson? Who do you prefer, him, Keir Starmer, Nigel Farage? Let me know, gbnews.com/your say. First, though, tonight, Reform UK leader and GB News host Nigel Farage spoke to White House Border Chief Tom Homan. And Tom previously served as acting director of US Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, and he's been key to President Trump's ability to deport hundreds of thousands of migrants. He's a huge figure here in Washington. This is what he said.
We have over 1,000 ICE teams out on the streets every day enforcing the immigration law. We send a clear message to the whole world that if you're here illegally, especially if you're a public safety threat and national security threat, we're looking for you, going to be gone. But we're also going to enforce the law against other illegal immigrants. A lot of people are choosing to leave on their own rather than, being formally deported, because if they're formally deported by ICE, then they have a statutory bar where they can't come back to the country for a period of time, for anywhere from 5 to 20 years to never. The law is clear in federal statute. If you come to the border without proper documentation, you shall be detained. If they're really escaping fear and persecution from their home government, why are they not claiming asylum in the first free country they come to? But the wall works. The walls work. Every place a wall's been built, a barrier's been put in, illegal immigration has declined, illegal drug flow.
Now, I'm delighted to say is former White House press secretary during President Trump's first term and still a very influential person inside the White House, Sean Spicer. Thank you so much, Sean, for coming to see me. Let's talk about the work that Tom Homan has done on the border, getting illegal migration down to zero. When Donald Trump arrived in the White House for this term, did you think that was possible?
Yeah, partly because they had time to plan for it. So when you look at the actions that happened on the first day, the cities that Tom Homan and the White House targeted, it wasn't by accident. They knew exactly what they were doing. They had thought about it. They had planned for it, and they executed that plan starting day one. We knew, because Donald Trump had showed us in the first term that it could be done. Joe Biden said, there's nothing I can do. It takes a legislative fix. We knew that was untrue. And so I think that Donald Trump and his team wanted to show very clearly and very early on in the second term that they could do it and that they would do it. And obviously, we're seeing the results of that.
The ICE raids in particular, this knocking on people's doors, plainclothes often, is very controversial here. I don't think you can sort of overstate that enough, really, of how divisive that has been. And we've seen this shooting today in Dallas.
Yeah.
What do you blame that response on? Because, of course, the left have been whipping up.
So it's the left, and so for folks overseas, like in this country, the left is not just the politicians and the activists, but most of the media. And so when you start telling people that these are bad people and that they're threats to democracy, when in fact quite the opposite, they're the ones preserving our country. Look, these agents go out and risk their life. They risk their families in their homes being doxxed, their address being put out there, to defend the laws of this country. When someone comes into this country illegally, they're breaking our laws. We are a nation of laws. And so when you choose to break those, it doesn't set a very good precedent for why you came to America in the first place. But what Tom Homan and those folks are doing is they're targeting criminals. And in the process, I've talked to Tom about this, if they see someone who's not here, they're not just letting them go. They're saying, we're going to round up anybody that's with them that's in the country illegally. That's making the country safer. It's also making sure that we keep drugs out, traffickers out, but also that we maintain a rule of law and that we maintain jobs for Americans that are in this country legally.
You're fairly familiar with the British situation as well and the problem that we have with illegal migration. And the question that we'll keep asking, and no doubt will come up almost every night on this show, is how do we do something similar?
I mean, so the funny part about this is, to your earlier question, this is political will. You have to make a decision about whether or not you prioritize the borders of your country. Donald Trump says this all the time. It's common sense. It's not right versus left, Republican versus Democrat, conservative versus liberal. The question is, do you think that borders are necessary for your country? Because what makes Britain, Britain, and France, France, and Spain, Spain, is a border. And what makes us unique from Mexico or Canada is a border, a northern border and a southern border. As soon as you don't acknowledge those borders anymore and people can come in at will, then you're not a country. And I think that that's what Donald Trump prioritized and put it very clearly in terms of his senior folks and all the way down to the agents on the ground saying, you will now protect our country. You will make sure that people who are in the country legally are here, that if they're not here, that they're deported. And the two things, it's not just the policy, but it's the message. What Joe Biden did was he sent a big magnet up and said, if you come to America illegally, we'll then reward you. We'll give you a hotel room, a gift card, a phone. So why wouldn't you come? It made sense for people to come legally. What Donald Trump has done is not just those policies, but made it very clear that if you come, we will send you back, and we'll send you back quickly.
Well, it sounds very familiar. Let me just show you the footage of what Ted Cruz said today when he was talking about how this is causing this tension that we're seeing in America. Here we go.
Politically motivated violence is wrong. It was 2 weeks ago today that we saw a political assassination in Utah that tore the heart out of much of this country.
We've now had political assassination of Charlie Kirk.
Right.
We had this assassination today. We had, of course, the assassination attempt on Donald Trump's life as well, all from snipers on roofs.
Yeah.
Very difficult to protect people from that sort of attack.
But there's the protection piece, and then there's what led up to it, right? And what I mean by that is the left wants to talk about both sides of them. You haven't heard, at least I haven't, and I'll give them some grace on this one, but as much as they condemned the assassination of Charlie Kirk, for the last week, people have been throwing rocks and projectiles at ICE agents, government vehicles, and no one on the left condemns that. The media actually just reports it as if it's a fact. When you condemn political violence, you need to condemn it in all of its forms. Those ICE agents are government employees doing their job. They're enforcing the current law. If you don't like the law in America, change it. Vote new people in. Petition your government. But you don't get to attack people, throw rocks, projectiles at people and government property in the name of what you believe is the greater good. And what Ted Cruz said is absolutely right. But where are these left-leaning leaders, Chuck Schumer, AOC, Hakeem Jeffries, all of the other folks on the left, Kamala Harris, Hillary Clinton, who are all out there today, saying that this is wrong? Where are they? They're silent.
Yeah, or they're saying it's wrong, but we blame Donald Trump for this. Let's talk about the president, because you are one of the very few people who was working with him in his first administration as the press secretary. You used to be Caroline Leavitt. Is that fair to say?
Well, she's a little bit shorter, blonder, but that's a compliment.
She is amazing.
She is a dynamo.
How different is the job that she has to do? For people who don't know, Caroline Leavitt is, like you say, the phenomenal force of nature, the beautiful blonde woman. She's stands up, she's smart, and she talks to the press every week in the briefing room. How different is her job compared to when you were doing it? Because boy, that was a tough gig.
It was, and it's still a tough gig, just to be clear. There's a through line, which is working for Donald Trump is challenge. He is a tough boss. He's demanding, he's results oriented. So that part is still the same. I can guarantee you that. But when we were new, Donald Trump was new. There was a lot of newness and first times to some of the things that we went through. That was unbelievably challenging. She obviously has a really good relationship with him. She worked in that first term, so she knew the press office. She knew the dynamics of the job. That gave her a head start. But again, she's unbelievably talented. It's just a different dynamic. When you go first, you're trying things that have never been done before. We brought we allowed reporters to Skype into the briefing room. That was revolutionary at the time. Caroline has really brought in additional new voices, this new media seat and other people that normally wouldn't have been allowed in. So she's done a great job, not just at the podium, but really enhancing the quality of folks and the voices that have been brought into the press room to cover the president. And that is a big change. I had a front row of just people who wanted to get on TV or get a clip on social media and attack the president or me. Caroline has really opened the door to a lot of additional voices that want to cover the president. TPUSA, Charlie Kirk's organization, they have a White House correspondent. The Daily Wire has a correspondent. The Heritage Foundation has a correspondent. We've really opened up the ability for more voices to come into Caroline's credit.
See, some would say therefore you've packed the room with people who like
Oh, no. CNN's still there in the front row. You know, so is ABC, NBC, The Washington Post.
BBC.
So, BBC. but that's before I had one or two potential people that they weren't, I wouldn't even say they were sympathetic. They were tough, but they cared about issues that weren't in the mainstream of the Beltway media. These guys now, she can go to people and talk about issues that are much more on the minds of everyday Americans than the Beltway media narrative.
We hear about this auto pen, and for British viewers who don't know what that is, this is the notion that Joe Biden was signing certain documents, in particular executive orders, not himself, but via an auto pen that would mimic his signature. Donald Trump is trolling that concept today. So there is well, let's see if we've got the pictures of it. There is a corridor in the White House.
Outside, in the colonnade leading up to the West Wing. And he created that, by the way. He is doing this all over the White House, to really enhancing the beauty and the optics of the White House. So he created this walk of fame that comes from the residence of the White House into the West Wing along the colonnade there. And as you can see, your viewers can see, instead of a picture of Biden, it was the auto pen, obviously, to your point, a troll of Biden that he really wasn't the president, the auto pen was.
The left have not got a sense of humour about this on social media. I mean, what I do love about that is it's just funny. It's hilarious.
And also, to your point, he knows how to get them. They immediately, reflexively, they blow their minds at everything. He literally knows how to push their buttons.
Is that his idea?
Oh,
or is it some millennial
you know what?
in there?
I don't know. It could, but I will tell you, the funny thing is, having been in the room with him, sometimes it's an iterative process, or someone says something and he goes, you know what would be even funnier? So I give him the benefit of the doubt on this, but also he's the only one that can execute that idea. So whether or not it was originally his idea or not, he's the one that signed off on it and said, yeah, this is great, let's do it.
Amazing. Brilliant. Sean, it's so good to see you.
Good to see you. Congrats on such a great launch.
Thank you. Hot-footed it from the White House to be here with us. We are so grateful.
You bet.
Let us know your thoughts this evening. gbnews.com/your say. But still to come on The Late Show Live. The Republican representative for Ohio, Jim Jordan, is going to be talking to us about America's win against online censorship. If you've got an interest in free speech, you do not want to miss that conversation. President Trump's comments as well at the United Nations General Assembly have sparked outrage, but was he a victim of sabotage? He certainly thinks so. More on that next as well. This is The Late Show Live, only on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
isn't it?
no,
Because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Co weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to The Late Show Live. I'm Bev Turner. So remember this from yesterday.
Good morning, Mr. President. Good morning, President Trump. Good morning, Trump.
So that was, of course, President Donald Trump pointing out a series of challenges that he faced at the United Nations General Assembly. Of course, the escalator broke down and so did his teleprompter. Well, tonight, President Trump has taken to Truth Social. He said it's a real disgrace that took place at the United Nations yesterday, but was it sabotage? He seems to think so. Well, I'm delighted to say that I'm joined in the studio now by Joshua Trevino, Senior Advisor to the President at the America First Policy Institute, and the Daily Telegraph's Chief US Correspondent, Rob Crilly. And we also have Democrat strategist Kayvan Shroff down the line with us this evening. So thank you all, gentlemen, for joining me. Right, let's start with you, actually, Kayvan, as we can see you there. Was this sabotage, do you think, in New York against Donald Trump to embarrass him in a room of people that he was about to upset with his speech?
It's Kayvan. Good to join you. I don't really think so. And, you know, if you go by Donald Trump's own allegations that he's the fittest person ever and that he never uses a teleprompter, you have to wonder, how could it even be sabotage? Because can he not walk a short distance? Can he not think without a script? That's what he claims. So it is interesting to hear that excuse. It's also more embarrassing that without the teleprompter and without a script, the best he had was all of your countries are going to hell. So absolutely, I don't think this was sabotage. Just like I don't think it was sabotage, it was just bad planning that they had Macron running around New York City, right, by himself because Trump was blocking him.
Let me bring in Joshua. Josh, what's your take on that? Do you think it was accidental?
I think the United Nations needs no prior planning in order to fail entirely on its own.
It's completely plausible to me that the escalator was simply out of repair. But at the same time, it's a broken system with broken people in it, and you can't put it past them to have done what they did to try to humiliate and failed to humiliate the President of the United States.
I was thinking of it as well, Rob, I don't know about you, but also just from the security point of view, because we've travelled with the President. You were my aeroplane seatmate when we went on Air Force One for the first time, and you looked after me beautifully, Rob, and he went and got me some special little M&Ms so I could take them home for the kids. But we've seen how he keeps moving. We've been in the motorcade. It's a security risk for him to be stood there at the bottom of that escalator, not surrounded by Secret Service, in a public place.
Yeah, I saw that point made. Yeah, you could see the look of surprise and shock on his face. He was momentarily stunned. Melania actually was the one who started heading up the steps, and she kept it all moving. So yeah, I think there may have been a security concern, but I would also say what a wonderful opportunity it provided to Mr. Trump, that and the teleprompter, for him to then talk about the dysfunction of the United Nations, and it served as a metaphor throughout his entire speech, didn't it?
It did. And Kaivan, let me come back to you then. The consensus here seems to be that maybe we don't know for sure that it was deliberate, but it just tells you a little bit about the relationship that the UN has with Donald Trump. He really landed some blows yesterday, didn't he, in that room? He did not hold back with what he called the globalists and how they were ruining their countries.
Yeah, I mean, it sounded like the consensus was that it obviously wasn't some vast conspiracy, but I will say, you know, his singular obsession with getting a Nobel Peace Prize, I think, really was what I saw online, and quite humiliating for him, of course, because obviously Barack Obama got one, and, you know, a tweet of my own got like 50,000 likes just pointing out that Donald Trump embarrassed America on the global stage. And here we had Barack Obama, who's really, I think, you know, the impetus for so much of what Trump does in office. He really sees himself in Obama's shadow, and that came through once again yesterday.
Do you think, Josh, what your take on that? Does Trump see himself in Obama's shadow? Is he in competition with him?
Oh, he's long since eclipsed Barack Obama. I don't think there's any question but that he regards himself as such, and he would be right to do so. So no, I don't think that for a minute he believes he's in Obama's shadow. No, does he think he's in Biden's shadow at all? I don't think there's any space for shadow when Donald Trump is in the room.
I think that's true, but I also think there is something in him that's never got over that rejection by the Manhattan elites, the people who laughed at him at the correspondence dinner, the episode that actually prompted him to run. So I think there is an insecurity there, and I was really struck by his speech yesterday. And the way, do you remember in 2018 when the audience laughed at him? He was boasting about his domestic achievements. They laughed at him. Yesterday they laughed with him, and I think some of the bombast that we saw from him was him imposing himself on the international world order, because he does still think he has something to prove.
Yeah. Let's just talk a bit about sort of how the Brits interpret Donald Trump and his administration. Do you have an impression, Kaivan, of how you think Donald Trump goes down overseas in the UK? You must have friends, as you say, you're busy on social media as well. What's your impression of how the British people feel about him?
Yeah, you know, I mean, what my understanding is like the rest of the global community, they are shocked to see America take such a hard right turn, crack down on things that had set us apart for decades, like our commitment to free speech, our commitment to democracy, to global leadership, to not cozying up to authoritarians and dictators the way that Donald Trump has. And obviously it's hugely disappointing, I think, for most of our global allies and partners, including, you know, the current leadership over there.
We're moving on now, I think, gentlemen. Thank you so much. Colin Firth's ex-wife and fashion campaigner, Livia Firth, has dramatically handed back her MBE and torn up the prestigious certificate in a social media video as she accuses Britain of appeasing President Donald Trump. Here's that moment.
So I have an MBE, and I accepted it in 2019 for my services to sustainable fashion. And I accepted it then on behalf of all the garment workers and the people that I met in the global supply chains all over the world. Today, in 2020, I cannot reconcile this being part of the British Empire particularly in light of what happened last week. So I'm returning it. This is my certificate. Accept it.
Okay, so I'm discussing this with you all here as well. What kind of statement is she making, Joshua?
When I hear the name Livia Firth, the question I ask is who?
You know Colin Firth?
Yes, I do, actually.
So she is the wife, or ex-wife, I think, of
Indeed,
Colin Firth. Are they
yes.
still married? You might know
Well,
better than me, Rob.
Don't ask me questions about celebrities.
No, I know. Well, I'm as clueless as you are when it comes to showbiz. I've not got an absolute clue. But it's another example, isn't it, of a famous person rejecting the idea of Donald Trump, but being so angry about it that they're actually doing something that harms them. We saw it with the women on social media this week, the pregnant women necking Tylenol just to make a political statement, even whilst risking taking a drug that their baby doesn't need.
Yeah, I mean, it's not something I completely understand. I mean, particularly after the state visit last week that you saw up close. I mean, I really think President Donald Trump proved to be the perfect guest. He didn't say anything outrageous. I thought that speech he delivered for the King was extraordinarily good. And I know that a couple of party political leaders stayed away from the banquet in the same spirit. But really, if you're going to accept one of these awards in the first place, you're buying into a whole system that dates back to it's a very old-fashioned type of award. It's not. If you're a progressive, why are you accepting
it in the first place?
Yeah. So very, very curious.
Kaivan, what did you make of Olivia Firth there ripping up her MBE because apparently we need to be less pleasant to Donald Trump?
Yeah, I mean, I think the reality is, as my colleague suggested, you know, who is she? To find some random celebrity's ex-wife to make a big thing about this, you know, there's all sorts of people across the political spectrum who do all sorts of things to suggest their political views and opinions, and obviously you can cherry pick one and make it a thing. I don't think this is some sort of movement that we've seen. If anything, in the US, it's often MAGA that's burning materials, buying CDs to set them on fire, and I think the artists are just as happy to have the money.
Okay, all right, thank you so much. We will be dropping in with all three of you throughout the show, I'm delighted to say. But moving on now, still to come on The Late Show Live.
London, our capital city, is a great place. It's known around the world. We have British law here at Selhurst Park this morning, no other kind of law. And that's what applies in our capital city and throughout our country.
The government is fighting back against President Trump's comments on London Mayor Sadiq Khan. Did he have a point? This is The Late Show, only on GB News.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits. You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless. But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show. Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Miriam, you can't be serious. Scrapping the triple lock on state pensions? Madness.
Andrew, we just can't carry on pretending. The numbers just don't add up. We've got to be honest with people. We've got to face the facts. That's what people want.
Well, that's what you get on GB News and on Britain's Newsroom. Lively debates, lively conversation.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first, and we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters. Real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Stephen Dixon, and thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
And we should come together. If we want to have a debate about immigration policies, we can do so in the halls of Congress without demonizing each other, and especially without demonizing the men and women who every day put on a badge and go risk.
Senator Ted Cruz calling for calm, actually, after 2 people were killed by a sniper at an immigration facility in Texas. We're going to bring you more on that developing story shortly. But first of all, a win for free speech. Google's parent company, Alphabet, has vowed to reinstate YouTube accounts, which were permanently banned for political speech during the Biden administration. And the man we have to thank for this is US House Judiciary Chairman Jim Jordan. Jim, thank you so much for joining me. I genuinely think this story should be getting more publicity, and I'm thrilled for you. I'm genuinely thrilled for all of us that believe in free speech, that you managed to get this censorship rulings, these regulations around YouTube overturned. Tell us why you were driven to take issue with this and what's happened.
Well, we had a witness last Congress, actually a journalist from Canada, who came and testified in front of our committee, and she said something I never forgot. She said that the hallmark of Western culture is free expression, this ability to debate, to take your best shot, get your best hold, make your best argument, and settle disputes via debate with free expression and free speech. When you start to hinder that, we have the First Amendment in the UK. You have this, long history of the law protecting speech. But when you start to hinder that, you get problems. So, Google came forward. And just like last August, when we had Meta come forward and say, the Biden administration pressured us to censor, we did it, we're sorry, we're not going to do it anymore. We got the same thing yesterday from YouTube and Google talking about the same issue. So big win for free speech. And then I think the second thing is they're going to reinstate everyone they kicked off, which is also, I think, a real win for the First Amendment here in the United States.
It really is. And are you aware of how different your approach to free speech and freedom of expression is here in the US compared to how it is in the UK at the moment?
No, we sure are. I mean, we had Nigel Farage testify in front of our committee a few weeks ago. He did a great job. In fact, I told him afterwards, I said, any witness who can get members of Congress to laugh once is a good witness. Nigel did it 4 times. He was humorous, but he also made the point about how free speech and your right to speak out and free expression, how they're under attack. And literally, he testified, I think it was 2 days after Graham Linehan, the comedian, had done the tweet. So you're familiar with that situation where you had an Irish citizen tweet something in the United States, then fly to the UK. When he lands at Heathrow Airport, he's arrested. And what I've said since then is that could happen to an American. It's bad enough what's going on there, but that could happen to an American as well. It's why we had Nigel here. It's why we're concerned about what's happening with free speech in our country, what happened under the Biden administration, and currently what's happening in the UK and also in the EU with the Digital Services Act is really scary. And we're concerned about that because, again, the hallmark of Western culture is the ability to debate and have free expression. But we're also concerned about what may happen to Americans, frankly, like what happened to the Irish citizen who landed there at Heathrow Airport.
There were allegations, of course, last week that with Jimmy Kimmel having to step down because of being suspended because of what he said about Charlie Kirk, that Trump was somehow the perfect person to just reflect on those allegations, Jim.
No, I think that was a business decision. You had Sinclair and Nexstar, two companies who own a number of affiliates, a part of ABC affiliates in some big markets, and they had expressed to ABC that they didn't feel like the people who were part of their network really wanted to watch Jimmy Kimmel late at night. And so I think this was a business decision. There's that famous statement made by Michael Jordan, even Republicans buy tennis shoes too. And I think that you have to look at Republicans watch late night television too. And Jimmy Kimmel was just insulting half his potential audience. And frankly, I don't think he was that funny. So I think they were making a business decision. And the fact that they've reinstated him, I think, shows in like a couple days, shows that this was not some kind of censorship from the Trump administration. This was a business decision that Nexstar and Sinclair were making. And that's why you see the conflict. Nexstar and Sinclair, they didn't have him back on. He came back on last night on ABC, but on their affiliate stations, they didn't carry him.
And just let me ask you as well, what did you find when you were looking into the pressure from the Biden administration, particularly during the pandemic? What did you discover in this process about how much influence was being exerted by the White House on the social media companies?
Third day of the Biden administration, there's an email sent from the White House to Twitter, says, take down this tweet ASAP. And the tweet was from RFK Jr., a Democrat who would later run against Joe Biden for president before he dropped out of that race, became a Republican, and of course now is in the Trump administration. So they were censoring the very guy in their party who was going to run against them on the third day of the administration. That's how bad it was. And that's always how censorship works. It's always the people in power trying to limit the speech of people who are criticizing them. And of course, the irony, I don't think, is lost on anyone. Everything the Biden administration told us about COVID turned out to be false. They told us it didn't come from a lab. They told us it wasn't our money used at that lab in China. They said it wasn't gain of function research done at the lab. They said masks work. They said 6 feet social distance was based on science. They said the vaccinated couldn't get the virus. They said the vaccinated couldn't transmit the virus. And they said this was the first virus in history where there's no such thing as natural immunity. They were 0 for 8. But if you criticized them, you got censored. They pressured big platforms to censor them. And YouTube, part of Google, kicked you off your channel, for goodness sake. Dan Bongino was kicked off his channel. So that's how bad it was. That's why yesterday's letter and statement from Google to our committee was such a big win.
Yeah, it was. And Jim, I want to thank you from the bottom of my own heart personally for not letting this go and continue to shine a light on it. Everybody in the UK applauds this country for what you're doing to defend free speech at the moment. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
House Judiciary Chairman there, Jim Jordan. Right, let's have a look at some of the newspaper front pages. Keep your messages coming in, gbnews.com/your say. Gentlemen, let's go to your newspaper first, Rob Crilly. The Daily Telegraph. They have splashed on Manchester Mayor Andy Burnham, claiming that MPs are privately urging him to challenge Sir Keir Starmer for the leadership of the Labour Party. Dying to hear your thoughts on that in just a moment. More hot water for Labour in the Daily Mail, reporting that Sir Keir Starmer's Chief of Staff ignored official warnings that he had to declare hundreds of thousands of pounds in political donations. The Guardian reports that deprived areas of the UK will be given tens of millions of pounds as Labour tries to see off the threat from Reform UK. Can they buy your vote? I want to know. And the New York Post is reporting that the anti-ICE gunman who opened fire on a bus full of migrants has been identified as Joshua Yarn. That's the first picture we're seeing there of this young guy, Joshua Yarn, according to the New York Post. And the Washington Post is also reporting on that suspect being named after the anti-ICE, that's the Immigration and Customs Enforcement officers, the shooting that's left one detainee, one migrant dead, and 2 others critically injured. Let me know your thoughts this evening, gbnews.com/your say. We are going to go now back over to London and talk to GB News contributor and comedian. He's a favourite of mine from our channel, actually. I don't mind saying that. Steve N. Allen. It's so good to see you, Steve. Thank you for staying up to talk to me about these front pages. Let's start with The Telegraph, this huge story. And the man to my left writes for this newspaper. I'm going to go to him in just a moment. But I want to know what you think about this. How troubling is this for Keir Starmer that Manchester Mayor Andy Burnham, very well-liked Labour MP, might be just waiting to elbow him out of number 10?
Yeah, this is bad news. This is great news for popcorn sellers, I'd imagine, because this is when the drama seems to happen. So there's an interview where Andy Burnham says it's not his idea. Other Labour MPs have been getting in touch with him saying, you know what you should do? You should oust this Keir Starmer guy. So he's not like there's any blood on his hands, but he's not saying he's not going to do it. And in the world of politics, the non-denial is massive, isn't it? Now, there are many things that would need to happen beforehand. He's not a sitting MP, so he'd have to win a by-election. Then you need 80 Labour MPs to back him. But that could happen, and that's why this story isn't that surprising. Of course we know there'll be loads of Labour MPs who aren't happy. We saw the rebellion over the reforming benefits. So we know that there's a big section to the left of the party that aren't happy with what they've got. And it does mean, for all the people who spent ages saying, I can't wait for Keir Starmer to lose this job, be careful what you wish for, because the guy who might get the gig instead, he's already talking about wealth taxes in the form of a higher council tax for anyone living in a posh fancy house down in London. So this could really change things, not necessarily in the direction of the Keir Starmer haters' preference.
A story that isn't it's not cutting through here in the US because it does feel like a very Westminster scandal. This is about Morgan McSweeney, isn't it? Keir Starmer's chief of staff ignoring these warnings that he should have declared these hundreds of thousands of pounds. How serious is this feeling over there?
Well, the actual details of the story, possibly not. It doesn't sound that serious because it's one of those stories that's not really emotional, is it? This is talking about filling in paperwork and putting the wrong numbers in things. That's not the kind of stuff that gets you angry. But this could be the right amount of mud to sling in a direction that makes someone have to step down. These are the people that if you become the story, you have to give up the gig, don't you? So there's already been an investigation into it and they were found to do wrong. There was a fine, but this is like £700,000 worth of gifts that weren't correctly declared. But when you get into the details of it, it's about knowing that you were technically a membership-based organisation that then should have been under the control of the Electoral Commission. So it gets really messy really quickly. But it's all about vibes, in a sense, isn't it? It's about whether these are good optics. And if you've got someone who now we're going to have headlines talking about how dodgy things look, it might be the case that he feels he has to go.
Yeah, OK, Steve, I'm going to be talking to you again later. And I'm going to be talking to you two later as well. We didn't get to talk about this, but you are here with me until 2 a.m. UK time, so don't go anywhere. We've got plenty of time. Still to come this evening on The Late Show Live.
The President of the United States made it very clear he wants to see me and the hundreds of people who work here fired from our jobs. Our leader celebrates Americans losing their livelihoods because he can't take a joke. He will...
That row over freedom of speech continues. That is talk show host Jimmy Kimmel returning to air. That's up next and a whole lot more. This is The Late Show Live, only on GB News. Stay with me.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, this Trump made a good start. No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
The President of the United States made it very clear he wants to see me and the hundreds of people who work here fired from our jobs. Our leader celebrates Americans losing their livelihoods because he can't take a joke.
Jimmy Kimmel, and he's back. The American late night show host made his return on ABC after the network briefly pulled him following his controversial remarks about Charlie Kirk's death. Let's go live to commentator and filmmaker Amy Horowitz. Amy, good evening.
Good evening. How are you, Bev?
Good, thank you. Very well. So let's just remind ourselves what Kimmel said that was so controversial. He basically, I don't know whether you have the actual quote to hand, I don't, but he basically said that MAGA were making political capital out of this killing, and that it was actually irresponsible of MAGA to be suggesting this guy was on the left. But Kimmel's back on air, of course, and what do we learn from this what is the moral to this sorry story?
Oh, God, I don't think we had enough time to cover that, Bev, to be fully honest. But I'll give you the cliff notes, right? First of all, let's be clear. He never really apologized, right? He came back on air after essentially being, he was terminated by a certain amount of affiliates of ABC, right? Disney put him back on. He's on in major cities, but over 60 different affiliates kept him off because of those statements. He didn't really apologize. In fact, he does what the left does when they realize that they're caught with their pants down, and that the person that we're talking about, in this case, it was the killer of Charlie Kirk, was in fact of the left. They say, well, he was crazy, right? Obviously, he was unbalanced, right? Of course, all these killers are unbalanced. That's not the point. The point is they are people of the left. And I think what we find here is that a couple things. First of all, I think it's fascinating that when Jimmy Kimmel got fired, that there was more outrage from the left about Jimmy Kimmel's firing than about Charlie Kirk's assassination, right? That's first of all. And second of all, the problem we have in general is not necessarily, like it's with Islamic terror. Yeah, it's not about the people who are the actual terrorists, although obviously that's a problem. It's the permission structure around it, right? And that you have that with the left, that when you see killings, terrorism, essentially, from the left, you have the people who are associated with the left essentially giving cover for that person, talking about how bad Charlie Kirk was, how evil he was, right? And when you say that, all you're doing is making excuses for that kind of violence. And I think the demarcation line was Mangione. And I think bringing back Kimmel into this thing, Mangione, I think, was the turning point for what we see, because Mangione got support, not demonization, support from mainstream left, including Jimmy Kimmel. who talked about how hot he was and how he did it because he was, the associated problems with healthcare coverage here in America. And I think that is ultimately the problem that we have.
Okay, Ami Horowitz, thank you so much for joining me on that. Let me get the opinions of my guests in the studio. Apologies for that. And the Telegraph's chief US correspondent, Rob Crilly. We were also joined, I think, down the line by Democrat strategist Kievan Shroff. Gentlemen, let's talk about this Jimmy Kimmel situation. What would be the comparison, Rob, in the UK of the Jimmy Kimmel character getting canned?
Well, I've got to say, first of all, having watched his show last night, he should be cancelled immediately. The public display of emotion when he welled up with tears describing Charlie Kirk's death as a Brit in America, I find deeply uncomfortable.
We're much more buttoned up than that, Joshua.
But I think I mean, I'm not sure what the comparisons are, but the idea that a comedian could be pulled off in that way, whether it is through the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, sort of suggesting they're going to take a look at this, whether it's ABC being concerned about the political fallout from the White House, whether it's to do with the affiliates saying they're not, the owners of the affiliates saying they're not going to broadcast this stuff anymore. I mean, I think to see this happening in America with the First Amendment is extraordinary. Yeah. I think it's much more likely actually to happen in the United Kingdom.
See, podcaster Joe Rogan has just spoken about this as well, just today, and said that he thinks it was outrageous that the government got involved in this and that comedians should be free to speak their mind. It's quite a criticism of Trump from someone who's normally very much supportive of the president.
Joe Rogan has this wrong. Comedians are free to speak their minds. All Americans are free to speak their minds. Let's characterize what Kimmel did accurately. He lied about the affiliation and motivation of Charlie Kirk's assassin. Lied, and I use that word deliberately, characterizing him as a man of the right, when in fact he was demonstrably a man of the left and motivated to the assassination as such. And for that, the affiliates and the network, not the government, not the FCC, took him off air. And so he suffered market consequences for that. That's normal. That's a free society at work. And Kimmel is an absolute hypocrite to claim that he is any kind of champion of free speech in this. Rogan get this one wrong.
Let's see what he said, because I always think with these speech issues, it's really important to look at the actual thing that was said, because it all gets so noisy, doesn't it? Kimmel said during his monologue that the MAGA gang, the Make America Great Again gang, was desperately trying to distance itself from Kirk's suspected assassin, 22-year-old Tyler Robinson. And you think it was too soon or just not appropriate?
No, it was demonstrably factually false. It was already known by the time Kimmel spoke what the motivation of the killer was, and it was not that.
Okay, fantastic. Right, keep your thoughts coming this evening, gbnews.com/your say. Thank you, gentlemen. Coming up in the next hour.
We've got to stop demonizing each other.
Exactly.
Yeah. Now, I think most of that right now in our country's history is coming, from the right.
Hillary Clinton blaming a rise of the right, for a rise in dangerous rhetoric. Is she right? Here's your weather.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good morning, I'm here with your GB News weather update coming to you from the Met Office. Another fine day for many of us today. In fact, there could be more sunshine on offer than we've seen through some recent days, albeit with a bit of a breeze towards the southeast and also the far northwest. Otherwise, generally light winds and, like I said, lots of sunshine, lots of blue sky, just a little bit of cloud bubbling up here and there. With the sunshine, where you get it, it is going to feel relatively warm. Temperatures peaking in the high teens, possibly even just about scraping into the low 20s Celsius. Obviously feeling a bit fresher towards the southeast and northwest where we have that brisk breeze. Later on as we go through this evening, staying largely fine. There's some clouds nearby to the far northwest of Scotland, but not really expecting that to make much headway in. So really it's going to be a dry end to the day across Scotland with some late sunshine as well. A similar story across much of Northern Ireland and across the bulk of England and Wales as well. Some late sunshine here, albeit with a little bit of cloud perhaps pushing across parts of Lincolnshire and some thicker cloud around Kent. Maybe 1 or 2 showery bursts mixed in with this as well. Then as we go overnight, a little bit more patchy cloud will come in from the east at times. Most places, though, staying dry with clear skies, and similar to recent nights with the clear skies and mostly light winds, again, we're going to see our temperatures taking a bit of a drop. Towns and cities, yes, generally holding up in the mid to high single figures, but away from the more built-up areas, temperatures will drop close to, if not a little bit below freezing. So a fresh, chilly, maybe even frosty start to the day for many of us tomorrow. Then through tomorrow, more cloud coming in from eastern parts, and where it's thick enough, a few spots of rain here and there. Further west, staying dry, brighter, and often quite sunny, but worth bearing in mind there is a band of rain out to the west of us. This is going to arrive in time for the weekend, so most of us will see a bit of rain on Saturday. Temperatures tomorrow, well, not quite as high as today because of the thicker cloud pushing in.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits. You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless. But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show. Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Tom Harwood. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's 1 a.m. in the UK. It's 8 p.m. here in Washington, D.C. I'm Bev Turner, and this is The Late Show Live. Welcome to The Late Show Live with me, Bev Turner. What have we got coming up tonight? 2 dead and 1 injured in a shooting at an illegal immigration detention facility in Texas.
This needs to stop.
Violence is wrong. Politically motivated violence is wrong.
President Trump demands the UN staff who sabotaged his appearance yesterday be fired, and he's called for an investigation. More on that furious rant in just a moment. Sadiq Khan has fired back at Donald Trump after the US president's Sharia law claim. Meanwhile, Nigel had this to say in reaction to the comments.
I think President Trump has shown he is racist, he is sexist, he is misogynistic, and he's Islamophobic.
If I said to you that swans were being eaten in royal parks in this country, that carp were being taken out of ponds and eaten in this country by people who come from cultures that have a different... Would you agree it's happening here? I've certainly read... I didn't know about swans.
That was, of course, Nigel Farage. Before that was London Mayor Sadiq Khan. And this evening, former American President Barack Obama has slammed Donald Trump over his paracetamol claims. Find out what he told a British audience only tonight.
The President of the United States made it very clear he wants to see me and the hundreds of people who work here fired from our jobs. Our leader celebrates Americans losing their livelihoods because he can't take a joke. He was...
And that is the now uncancelled Jimmy Kimmel returning to the screens and hitting back at Donald Trump. Stay tuned for the full clip in just a while. I'm Bev Turner. This is The Late Show Live. Welcome to the second hour, where the headlines just get hotter. We've dropped the brakes. We've literally dropped the brakes, so don't go anywhere. Yes, you heard that right. This is a whole hour of TV on GB News with no adverts, so stay with me until 2 o'clock, 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. if you're here in DC. Now, this year marks the 5th anniversary of the signing of the historic Abraham Accords. Now, that was the agreements that established the relationship between Israel and several Arab states. Well, yesterday, American President Donald Trump vowed to end the war in Gaza after meeting with Arab leaders.
We're here to see if we can get the hostages back and get the war over and get back to life in the Middle East. So this is going to be a very important meeting. We're going to get something done because it's gone on too long, and we want it to end. But we want to get those hostages back too.
Joining me now is founder of the Accordists, Maajid Nawaz. You might know him at home as a legendary British broadcaster.
Too kind, Beth.
Maajid, it's so great to see you in Washington.
Allow me to congratulate you on the launch of GB News
I will allow
America and your show, and it's fantastic to be here and to be part of the first week of this show in Washington.
Right, you are pretty much the person I go to if I want to know what's going on in the world, and that's no exaggeration because you are so hyper-vigilant to geopolitics, and you have been for many years. If I wonder what's going on in the world, I want to see what is actually happening. I go and find you on socials and your channels. So what are you doing now with the Accordists, and why have you been driven to take this step?
Right, well, we founded www.accordist.org on the anniversary, the 5th year anniversary of President Trump's Abraham Accords. They were signed under Trump's first term. He didn't get the credit that we feel he deserves for that because it was the first historic peace deal between Arabs and Israelis since the assassination of the Egyptian president Anwar Sadat in 1981. Relations had frozen since then, and along comes Trump in his first term and manages to pull out of the hat a historic peace deal between Arabs and Israelis. They're called the Abraham Accords. Of course, October the 7th and the terrorist attacks of October the 7th happened. The Saudis were about to join the Abraham Accords, and October the 7th scuppers all of the progress made in peace in the Middle East. And of course, the thing has been frozen since then. What the Accordists are about is that we feel it's high time to revive and consolidate on the successes of the Abraham Accords and expand those accords. And the fundamental premise the Accordists believe in and that we're based on is that this conflict is a regional conflict. It involves more than just the typical media portrayal of a bilateral conflict between the Palestinians or even between Hamas and the Israelis. This is a regional conflict, and I'm happy to unpack that, but it needs a regional approach.
So this is one of arguably the most complicated political network of allegiances and animosity across the world on the present day, and has been for decades. And so your argument is it's been so simplified, in no small part by the media, that it's Netanyahu versus Hamas with America on the periphery. So what do you want to come about now? A greater understanding, at the very least, of the situation?
Absolutely. So we commissioned a YouGov poll, which is a famous polling company in the UK, on this question as to what Britain believes about relations between Arabs and Israelis. Around 91% of the British public that expressed an opinion said they believe it's important, or very important, for Arabs and Israelis to have good relations. However, 87% of the British public had not heard of the Abraham Accords. So on the one hand, they want better relations, but on the other hand, they don't know of the existing vehicle to bring about those better relations. So the Accordists were founded to fill that gap, that public knowledge gap.
And so just explain to me, it is too complex to go into. This is the problem with modern media, isn't it? It's fast and everything gets very simplified. But your argument being that there will not be any peace in that region until you bring in Iran, Jordan, Saudis. Why have they not all sat around and done what you're suggesting they should do now? What is the stumbling block there?
Well, 5 years ago in Trump's first term they did, and historically, and it's a great achievement.
And he didn't get enough credit for that, did he?
Well, he didn't get any credit for it. I was on air at the time on my former show in the UK.
Channel we both used to work for.
Indeed, we shall not mention.
What very inferior news outlet.
Well, so I remember praising Trump's success in the Abraham Accords and facing a backlash from certain sectors of the public and also from the media establishment for actually recognising this as a success. And it was then frozen, especially after during the Biden presidency. But what happened was that the Emirates and Morocco and Sudan, they all signed up to the Abraham Accords to make peace with Israel. It was historic, and it involved not just a cessation of violence and hostilities, but diplomatic and economic exchanges. Now, we've got to a scenario now where unless we recognise that the problem is regional, we're in danger of repeating the same mistake over and over again, which is the definition of madness, and that is to assume it's a bilateral problem. So let me unpack that a bit. Iran, for example. Now, Iran's been funding Hamas in Gaza. Iran's been funding Hezbollah in Lebanon, and Iran's been funding the Houthis in Yemen. Now, that's just one example of how this is a regional problem involving multiple countries. In addition to Iran, you've got the Saudi Arabia element. So Saudis had their own problem with the Iranians in Yemen, where they fought a bitter civil war that actually didn't have anything to do with Israel. It was a Saudi-Iranian problem fighting a proxy war in Iran. Add a fourth element, and that is the countries that already signed up to the Abraham Accords that wanted peace with Israel, such as the Emirates, and you've got four different factions right there.
So when Keir Starmer designates, and other European leaders and Canada and Australia, when they designate Palestine as a state, is that helpful?
Well, not in the context. If you understand this is a regional problem, then by definition, unilateral decisions are not regional decisions, and they're a failure by definition in diplomacy. Any unilateral declaration of a recognition of a Palestinian state is outside of an existing framework. Now, what Trump's meeting in the UN now just indicated, where in fact Trump called it the most important meeting at the UN. He met with the leaders of Indonesia, Pakistan, Egypt, the UAE, Qatar, and Jordan, Indonesia. He met all of them together and he said, you guys together, we need to fix the problem in the Middle East, recognizing it's a regional problem. Now, we hope to, of course, pick up with the Accordist-in-chief, President Trump himself, on his success in his first term. But our aim is to fill that public perception gap and say, listen, any peace that is negotiated, if the public aren't behind it, it's going to be a very fragile peace.
What would the benefits be to the British public of peace in the Middle East?
Well, multiple. I mean, look, war causes instability, it ends up affecting the economy, the uncertainty, all of that gets solved. And I think ultimately, though, of course, there's a heavy Jewish community in the UK, Muslim community. Ultimately, I think peace in the Middle East and stability in the Middle East will make for a lasting peace, will make for a much better world. A lot of the conflicts come down to some of the problems in the Middle East.
Yeah. Majid, always fascinating.
Thank you, Beth.
Thank you so much. You're doing great work and wish you success here in DC.
My pleasure.
Right. Thank you, Majid Nawaz there. Now, moving on. Let me know your thoughts, gbnews.com/your say. Still to come on The Late Show Live.
My concerns, as I say, and they're serious concerns, are about the approach to the economy of the Reform Party and the approach on national security.
We're going to dive deeper into the former Prime Minister Boris Johnson's war of words against the possible future PM Nigel Farage. But first, a story you don't want to miss.
Oh yeah, and erased from history, from the history of feminism, which that cracks me up.
Do the rules of cancel culture apply differently to men and women? Comedian Roseanne Barr would say yes, and she has. You'll catch that in just a minute. This is The Late Show Live, only on GB News.
See you for dinner.
Yeah, you will. There's no ad break, Majid. There's no ad break. We're here. We're just here till 2 o'clock in the morning. Honestly. Turning Point USA's tour has returned to college campuses weeks after the assassination of Charlie Kirk. The political activist was shot dead, of course, at the speaking event in Utah. Thousands of people honoured his legacy at his memorial on Sunday, including President Donald Trump.
I know I speak for everyone here today when I say that none of us will ever forget Charlie Kirk, and neither now will history. For millions of Americans, especially young people, it is agonizing and unthinkable to say goodbye to a patriot whose heart still had so much to give.
One man is carrying on Charlie Kirk's legacy, and that man is the ambassador for Turning Point USA, Bo Loudon, and I'm delighted to say that he joins us now. Bo, very good evening to you. Thank you so much. And first of all, just sympathies and commiserations because of Charlie Kirk's death. It really is awful. How is everything now at Turning Point USA whilst you reflect on what you've lost?
I mean, I think first and foremost, thanks for having me on. But everything at Turning Point has been bigger and better than ever. I mean, they are more action ready and out there than I've ever seen. I mean, that memorial was one of the most incredible nights of my entire life. I mean, first of all, it was exactly how Charlie Kirk would have done it. It's how he would have wanted it. I mean, having all of these people who, may have been religious here and there, but having them all proclaim, Jesus Christ as King right there on stage in front of millions watching around the world and hundreds of thousands there in person. I mean, it was really, truly something special and nothing like any event I've ever been to in my life. But Turning Point's more geared up than ever. They're getting ready to go back to college campuses. We have America Fest in December, which is going to be massive, probably as big, if not even maybe bigger than the memorial service. And it's all to carry on Charlie's legacy and honor the life that he lived and the legacy he's leaving behind for all of us with Turning Point.
You're a very good friend of the Trumps. You're a very good friend of Barron, and you pretty much grown up amongst the family. Just tell us a little bit about how important Charlie Kirk was to the Trump family.
I mean, he was somebody that they had always believed in since he was a young guy. He came up there with ambitions bigger than people who were 3 times his age. But he had never, he always said, he even told one of my friends, Brylan Hollyhand, that the left will always have more money than you and they will out-fundraise you, but they can never outwork you. And that's something Charlie really believed in. So he worked every day. And at first he was this young guy coming them with his big dreams, and the whole Trump family just believed in him. And they really looked up to him and really admired him for his work. And they spoke at tons of his events. I believe they're all going to speak at the one in December as well at America Fest. And even young people like Barron, with parents as great as his. I mean, Charlie was a really big inspiration for him, for me, with as great as my parents are and stuff like that. I mean, he changed the lives of my generation, particularly more than any major figure I've seen in this generation.
Yeah. You're obviously a good friend of Barron. How does he like being as part of this remarkable family? Does he just take it in his very long stride?
I mean, 100%. I mean, he loves his father. He loves the fact that he was able to play a hand in this election, with all the work he did and put towards it as well. And he has an incredible family. He knows that, and they appreciate him too. They're all just great. And he's a very good parent. He parents and raised Barron really well.
Yeah, absolutely. No, he's a remarkable man. And I'd love to know your opinion, Bo, on the situation with Jimmy Kimmel, a comedian, perhaps saying something inaccurate at the very least. Did he deserve to lose his job? Should he have gone back to his job after that?
You know, I think I heard a lot from Jimmy Kimmel last night. What I didn't hear was "I'm sorry." You know, there's been a lot of wishy-washy comments on "oh, I'm sorry" or "I didn't mean to," but there wasn't an "I'm sorry." You know, and now they're touting free speech as if this has ever been a care or a major policy for them. You know, we have conservatives like Lee Allen Baker or Roseanne Barr, people like that have been, or John Voight, major celebrities that have been lost all of their careers or shows or whatever it was just for speaking out. But now they're the party of free speech. You know, I'd like some accountability. I'd like there to not be double standards when it comes to a conservative being fired versus a leftist. You know, I'd like it to be fair and genuinely about free speech. And I want some accountability. If you said something that despicable as Jimmy Kimmel did, you need to just get on TV and say, "I'm sorry."
Absolutely. So future looks bright for Turning Point USA then, Bo, and also, you know, the tragic irony, and actually if there's any good to have come out of this awful, hideous loss of Charlie Kirk and the loss to Erica and those children, is that the turning point is that the message that he was trying to get across, whichever part of that message people want to take, has gone global in a way that Charlie would be so proud of.
Yes, yeah, I mean 100%, and that's even affected even in Jimmy Kimmel. You know, he was on air talking about Jesus Christ, which is I mean, that was never anything I would have expected to see on his show. But here you have the same kind of Charlie Kirk effect. You know, he probably got in his Bible after the events of the past few weeks. So I mean, and that's just like many other. I have so many friends telling me, "Hey, man, I haven't been to church in 15 years, but I'm back in church today after the assassination on Charlie Kirk." You know, it's made a massive impact on around the world. I mean, I have friends calling me from China, from the UK, that are leading massive support groups and prayer groups or whatever for Charlie Kirk and hosting them all around the nation. I mean, it's made a massive impact, and I think Turning Point themselves have like 50,000 new chapter signups, and they took that from around like 1,600. So, to 50,000, that's a big jump.
It is remarkable. Bo, thank you so much for joining us this evening, the ambassador for Turning Point USA, Bo Loudon there. Great to see you. Right, I'm joined back in the studio now. There's no adverts, boys. There's no adverts. Joshua Trevino, Senior Advisor to the President at the America First Policy Institute, and the Daily Telegraph's Chief US Correspondent, Rob Crilly. I'm also joined down the line by Democratic strategist Khyvan Shroff. Thank you all so much for being here with me. Let's just talk a little bit about the Charlie Kirk situation, Josh. That is remarkable, isn't it? When you think about out of terrible situation comes good. The global reach of Turning Point now, the message that Charlie was trying to get across. Unfortunately, you know, he has lost his life, but he would be, I'm sure, pleased to see that it's worldwide now. It's phenomenal.
In Genesis 50:20, Joseph says to his brothers that what you meant for evil, God meant for good. And although it is absolutely a tragedy and unacceptable that Charlie Kirk was assassinated by the left, nevertheless, there is good that comes of it because of the life that he lived and the virtues that he exemplified that are now redounding across the world, not just the country. And that's the grace that we take from it.
And that, I mean, it's interesting to hear you talk then about the Bible. I think what moved people from that ceremony was Erica Kirk, I forgive him. It was just the most powerful message. We need more of that, don't we, Josh?
We need a lot more of it. And you can tell everything you need to know from the movement that does forgive and seeks to live in peace and seeks to have dialogue like Charlie Kirk did, and now that Erica Kirk does, and the movement that kills those with whom they disagree.
Yeah. Rob, let me ask you as a Brit, I know you will have been struck by this as much as I have, is how much religion and Christianity is front and centre of the political dialogue in this country, so different to the UK.
Yeah, we find it very unusual, don't we? You can be at any event and it will begin with prayers, and we have taken religion out of our public life, and ironically we see it here in the United States where there is the separation of church and state. But actually you do see religion in lots of different areas of public life, which is not what we're used to. I mean, personally, I'm not a fan, but if that's the way the US wants to operate, then that's fine.
Yeah. Let's go to Khyvan, Democratic strategist. Khyvan, you just heard Josh say there about Charlie Kirk's life being taken by the left, whilst also, again, talking about this message of forgiveness. Just your response to that, please.
Jimmy Kimmel, right? He did not accuse a right-winger of committing the assassination. He merely pointed out that Republicans are using this moment to try to crack down on their political opposition, which of course we are seeing. J.D. Vance actually hosted Charlie Kirk's show and directed the millions of listeners to go try to get progressives fired from their jobs. So very alarming to see that. And I think, you talk about Erica Kirk's moment, and it was a beautiful moment, of course, immediately undermined by Donald Trump saying he hates his political opponents. But in so many ways, Erica Kirk is actually, message aside, as a messenger, so antithetical to everything her husband preached. He said that women that get married and have kids in their 30s are past their prime and undesirable. She married Charlie Kirk in her 30s and had kids in her 30s. Charlie Kirk said that young women should only go to college for an MRS degree, basically to get married. She has 3 degrees, including a doctorate. And of course, now she's trying to take over her husband's empire as a CEO and businesswoman. So really, she's the product of modern feminism that so many on the MAGA side rail against. There's a great irony there.
How much of his content have you actually watched, Khyven?
A strong amount. Actually, I was press secretary to a liberal side organization last year that was specifically created to try to mimic what Turning Point did. So quite a lot of his content. Why do you ask?
Because I think what you've done there is you've taken some sort of moments that might have made it onto social media to suggest that maybe he was in some way, Charlie Kirk, sort of sexist and misogynist.
He was anti-college.
Feminist.
He says that proudly. He said that proudly, that he's anti-college, and he said that women would find it more fulfilling to work in the home. Several times. That's not one soundbite taken out of context, right?
I think that is a. I think you're misinterpreting what I hear as a woman on that debate. Yeah, of course they can, but or they can listen to us talking about it. But you see, I think as a feminist, well, no, because we're giving. No, but you are talking. You are here to have your voice heard.
I'm quoting him, and you're telling me that it's not valid to quote him. So, and you're asking,
well,
have I watched it?
You weren't quoting him. I think you were
I
paraphrasing.
think that's why your team probably booked me, because I have the requisite background to talk about these issues.
You do have the requisite background, but I just want to, I'm interested in your interpretation, because as a working mother of 3, I am very interested, and I would describe myself as a small left feminist, absolutely. When I heard Charlie Kirk and talk about the roles within the family, I've heard him talk about choice, and I've heard him say that women should look for a man, if they can, who can provide for them for when they want to have children. I think that is absolutely valid as a notion in 2025.
And all I'm doing is pointing out that the way he lived his own life is not consistent with that, as evidenced by his legacy in Erica Kirk.
Well, she's also, let me bring you in, Josh, because I do think it's a really interesting point of debate, this, because the idea of division of labour in the family, which is what Charlie Kirk was trying to turn the wheel in that conversation away from this rigid idea that that both men and women should go to work and they should have children. It's not benefiting anybody, this system we have at the moment.
No, it's not. But it's great that the Stroff guy is here, actually, to really show what the left has become in the United States, which is, when you descend to the level of mocking a widow whose husband has been shot in the throat in public. And you did, absolutely. You absolutely did, and it's despicable that you did, and it is absolutely contemptible that you've done that. So, when you see that kind of lie coming out of a partisan operative, this is who they are. This is the atmosphere that produced the assassination of Charlie Kirk. We have to understand that. It is a movement without grace and without sympathy for people like you, for normal people around America who frankly voted the president in as a majority in the last election. And there's a reason that they did. This is a losing political movement that cannot tolerate the fact that it is on the outs. And so they resort to this type of attack, which is disgusting in the view of most Americans, in order to mischaracterize an opposition that is now regnant and winning. And it is winning because of the grace that's shown by people like Erica Kirk and the life that Charlie Kirk lived, which was unquestionably a virtuous one. And we have to understand that.
Rob, let me bring in your British perspective, because boy, the division between left and right is intense in this country. I mean, it's pretty bad in the UK, but here it's on steroids.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to come back there and say, you know, I'm hearing here that it seems very difficult for somebody to both condemn the killing, the murder of Charlie Kirk, and his views. And it seems that people who are now becoming critical of Charlie Kirk and what he stood for are being accused of sowing partisan seeds, of being some sort of unpleasant monster. And I think we can have both. There is room for both in this debate. You can both be appalled at the tragic, senseless killing of Charlie Kirk, but also stand up and say that you're appalled by his views. That's where we should be. Yeah. And I'm not, there's no room in America at the moment. As a foreigner, someone who's lived here for 11 years, I get a real sense that America, its commitment to freedom of speech, its extraordinary written constitution that we all hold in awe, there's something unhealthy at the moment, and I apologise as a foreigner who loves living here to say that.
Yeah. Right, moving on. Jimmy Kimmel, of course, is back on air. ABC wasn't as forgiving with iconic comedian Roseanne Barr.
Well, yeah, and erased from history, from the history of feminism, which that cracks me up. I've never mentioned in any thing about women who are pioneers in media. I've never mentioned there.
So is there a double standard in how male and female comedians or public personalities are treated? Let me go to Kevin. First of all, Kevin, is it harder, do you think, for women to be forgiven in the court of public opinion? Roseanne Barr has never made it back onto mainstream media, has she?
Yeah, you know, I think it's two different conversations. I do think that women face, you know, structural barriers and sexism in media all the time, whether that's in entertainment or in politics and beyond. But I will say, I don't think that means that Roseanne Barr hasn't been successful compared to Jimmy Kimmel. She was an irrelevant, washed-up celebrity who had her show brought back for a rerun for like a bunch of, you know, 60-plus-year-olds to watch. It has nothing to do with the scale and impact of a huge star and celebrity like Jimmy Kimmel. And I think it speaks to the fact that that's the only comparison case you can come up with. By the way, somebody who was fired during Donald Trump's first term to compare to this situation. Now, I will say, I saw your guest Jim Jordan on a couple of minutes ago, and I thought it was interesting that he chose to say this wasn't government censorship on your show because it's a right-wing show, but just this morning on Squawk Box CNBC, he did admit that there was government pressure here. So quick fact check on that.
Well, Josh, is it maybe not that Roseanne Barr was a woman, but it might be that she's politically considered to be right-wing?
1,000% correct. It's not male versus female. It's left versus right. In the cultural heights, all is forgiven the left. Very little is forgiven the right. And a lot of the overreaction and the panic you see now on the left is because for the first time in their lives, they're having their rules applied to them. And I welcome them to it.
Rob, what's your take on that?
Well, one thing I will say is my sister happens to be a comedian, and she would tell you as soon as she had a kid and as soon as her age got up into the high 30s, the roles started drying up and it became harder. So there are some structural issues for women that make it harder. But yeah, I mean, it does feel as if Roseanne is on some different side of the political debate, and that has been a problem for her.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, what should we go on to now, gentlemen? What else has been going on in the UK and the US today? We are going to have a quick break for the weather. Don't go anywhere.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good morning, I'm here with your GB News weather update coming to you from the Met Office. Another fine day for many of us today. In fact, there could be more sunshine on offer than we've seen through some recent days, albeit with a bit of a breeze towards the southeast and also the far northwest. Otherwise, generally light winds and, like I said, lots of sunshine, lots of blue sky, just a little bit of cloud bubbling up here and there. With the sunshine, where you get it, it is going to feel relatively warm. Temperatures peaking in the high teens, possibly even just about scraping into the low 20s Celsius. Obviously feeling a bit fresher towards the southeast and northwest where we have that brisk breeze. Later on as we go through this evening, staying largely fine. There's some clouds nearby to the far northwest of Scotland, but not really expecting that to make much headway in. So really it's going to be a dry end to the day across Scotland with some late sunshine as well. A similar story across much of Northern Ireland and across the bulk of England and Wales as well. Some late sunshine here, albeit with a little bit of cloud perhaps pushing across parts of Lincolnshire and some thicker cloud around Kent. Maybe one or two showery bursts mixed in with this as well. Then as we go overnight, a little bit more patchy cloud will come in from the east at times. Most places though staying dry with clear skies, and similar to recent nights with the clear skies and mostly light winds, again we're going to see our temperatures taking a bit of a drop. Towns and cities, yes, generally holding up in the mid to high single figures, but away from the more built up areas, temperatures will drop close to, if not a little bit below freezing. So a fresh, chilly, maybe even frosty start to the day for many of us tomorrow. Then through tomorrow, more cloud coming in from eastern parts, and where it's thick enough, a few spots of rain here and there. Further west, staying dry, brighter and often quite sunny, but worth bearing in mind there is a band of rain out to the west of us. This is going to arrive in time for the weekend, so most of us will see a bit of rain on Saturday. Temperatures tomorrow, well, not quite as high as today because of the thicker cloud pushing in.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Right, let's go to the papers in the UK. Let's talk to London now. The Telegraph is splashing on Manchester Mayor Andy Burnham, claiming that MPs are privately urging him to challenge Sir Keir Starmer for the leadership of the Labour Party. More hot water for Labour. The Daily Mail reports that Sir Keir Starmer's Chief of Staff has ignored official warnings that he had to declare hundreds of thousands of pounds in political donations. The I newspaper is reporting that a breakthrough gene therapy has been shown to treat Huntington's disease for the first time. The New York Post is reporting that the anti-ICE gunman who opened fire on a bus full of migrants has been identified as Joshua Jan. And the Washington Post is also reporting on the suspect being named after that anti-ICE shooting left one detainee dead and two others are still critically injured. Let's go to GB News contributor and comedian Steve N. Allen, who is in London for us. Steve, do you have any information on this I newspaper reports about a breakthrough gene therapy for Huntington's disease?
Well, I mean, in terms of understanding the science, it's a little bit beyond me, but I'll tell you what I've read does seem fantastic. It's amazing what we can do now, that they've got the ability to try and do this gene therapy using what they call, I think it's mobile DNA, which has finally worked. And hopefully, now that we're in a time when more of the steps forward will be aided by AI, hopefully this is just the beginning of things to come. With a disease that is so horrible when you read about the details, and the fact that now we've finally managed to get a treatment that works. Some of the stories, I was looking at some of the test subjects, I suppose is what they're called. People who would have been in a wheelchair by now, but they're still walking around. Someone who had to take health-related retirement is now back at work thanks to the therapy. So let's hope this is heading in the right direction.
Bad morning for Keir Starmer over there, with the Telegraph splashing on this idea that Manchester Mayor Andy Burnham, a very popular Labour MP, is claiming that MPs are privately urging him to take over the leadership of the Labour Party. It wouldn't be that straightforward, of course, would it, Steve?
No, there's a few hurdles to try and jump over first. He's not an MP, so he'd have to win a by-election, and then you have to... The Labour Party rules about who gets to be leader are all very confusing. You need to get 80 Labour MPs, but I'm sure there are many Labour MPs who are not particularly loving the situation, which we know from the rebellion in the past, so whether you can get 80 or not lined up. It's an interesting interview, actually. So not only that line where he says that there are some Labour MPs who've contacted him about getting rid of Keir Starmer, about toppling him, but, you know, he gives his support to Keir Starmer. He says he's there for the Prime Minister. He also says, there's a bit where he says that Number 10 has got a climate of fear. So, yeah, really giving loads of support to him. So, look, this is amazing that he's actually said it out loud. It's not necessarily just to pay attention to how easy it would be. Look, it's getting the ducks in a row, and if someone can come along with a bit of news that scuppers this, then maybe it comes to nothing. But it's amazing that he's willing to say it out loud in a couple of interviews, because that then means the tanks are on the lawn, that things are moving, that it starts to look like maybe there's not this guaranteed future until the next election for Keir Starmer. That they thought when the election results were in, when you saw that level of that wide but not very deep majority, it looked like things were absolutely locked in for a while for Keir Starmer. But look, things are starting to move.
Yeah. Yeah, he's just so unpopular, isn't he, though? It doesn't matter whether you're, I've said it before, a billionaire or a bin man, Steve. He doesn't seem to be keeping anybody happy in the UK, Keir Starmer. And the Daily Mail, as if he hasn't got enough to deal with, are reporting that his Chief of Staff, Morgan McSweeney, ignored official warnings to declare hundreds of thousands of pounds of political donations. Now that they are smelling blood, the press are just going to keep going after Starmer, aren't they?
Yeah, because you're right, he's got so many plates to kind of spin. The polls saying that Starmer's not doing well, you could say, well, people who are in charge never do particularly well in the polls. It's not looking great, but maybe you could excuse some of that. The left of his party preferring Andy Burnham, well, the left would prefer Andy Burnham. But now you get this other tranche that he has to deal with of scandal. And if ever there's something that brings down the government, it's scandal, isn't it? Because we kind of don't mind politicians being annoying, being in it for themselves, all of these things, until it just tips over that line and it becomes scandal, and that's what brings down parties, that and schisms within the party. So yeah, there's already been an investigation about the way that the gifts, and by gifts it seems like a small thing, we're talking £700,000. No one's ever given me a gift like that, and if they would have done, maybe I'd have filled in the forms properly. They've already looked into it, there's already been an investigation, but now there needs to be another look into it, to whether they need to reopen it. Who knew what when? But it's not even about that. It's not even about the result of an investigation that might not even be started yet, because that's all in the future. Right now it's about scandal. And if this starts to make it look like Morgan McSweeney is the story, then maybe he'll have to go. And how many close supporters can one Prime Minister lose before things get a bit shaky?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Steve. Great to see you. My friend Stephen N. Allen there in Washington, in London. We, however, are in Washington. I'm still in the studio with Joshua and Rob. Rob, I've been dying to ask you all evening about that Telegraph story about Andy Burnham maybe taking a bit of a snap at the heels of Keir Starmer. You work for that newspaper. What do you make of it?
Well, there's nothing the Telegraph loves more than causing trouble for the Labour Party, the Labour government, of course. I mean, a couple of things. I mean, Andy Burnham, charismatic, popular, two things that Sir Keir Starmer is not.
I would also add to that list authentic, genuine, gets on with people, warm.
Yeah, I mean, he can be that bridge between that centre of the Labour Party and the left. He comes with those sort of credentials which Sir Keir Starmer has always struggled with. I might even go and so far as to link it to the Mail story, the ethics row that's developing at Number 10. I mean, if times were different, you could almost perhaps see a scapegoat being readied. Morgan McSweeney, a difficult character.
Yeah.
Let's not forget he was close to Peter Mandelson, who was sacked as ambassador to Washington. You know, it must be tempting to Sir Keir to think, well, maybe this guy could take the fall. Unfortunately, he's already had two other fairly major figures be fired or have to resign in the past few weeks. So really, this is just getting worse and worse. For
That's interesting. That's your political nose there, sniffing out what might be going on behind the scenes. So in other words, if Keir Starmer isn't going to go, Morgan McSweeney might be the person who has to go because somebody has to under these circumstances.
Although, as Steve said, he's already lost two figures, Sir Keir. A third would just add to the sense of crisis, I fear.
OK, let's have a look at what is happening in London this evening, because former President Barack Obama was speaking to crowds at the O2 Arena. He took aim at President Trump, accusing him of violence against the truth. This was over the claims that paracetamol could cause autism. He also claimed that the US is at a fork in the road following the killing of Charlie Kirk. Joshua Trevino, does it matter what Barack Obama says anymore?
Oh, I'm relieved to say that it does not matter what Barack Obama says. You know, he has been trying to run a shadow government out of Kalorama, neighborhood here in D.C., since leaving office formally in January 2017. It is well known that he dictated a lot of the Biden White House policy. And now that he has lost that apparatus, he is re-entering the public square and trying to do the same. But it's not going to work. His era is over. And it's going to stay over. So I would say there's a reason that he's taking these comments to London and not to Cleveland.
Kevin Schroff, let me come to you as a Democratic strategist. Does it matter what Barack Obama says in 2025? What impact does it have across the political landscape, in your opinion?
Yeah, it's Kaivan. I guess it does matter because we're here talking about it, right? So, I mean, it's still deeply relevant. And as we talked about, you know, an hour ago, Donald Trump still seems really obsessed with Barack Obama, as does the Republican Party, which, you know, at least in the U.S., continues to try to undo his signature highly popular achievement of getting health care for tens of millions of Americans. And I will say, you know, every time Obama does a tweet, every time Obama gives a speech, it still steals those headlines. And that's sort of one of the competitive advantages that Donald Trump has. And yet it seems anytime Obama wants attention, he can get it too. And he's obviously not the president. So I think it does speak to his enduring legacy.
Do you think, though, in terms of just scoring points, this accusing Donald Trump of violence against the truth because of the announcements they were making in the White House this week about paracetamol? I think if you listen, if people actually listened to their announcement, what they were trying to say is, we believe there could be a causal link between autism and paracetamol in pregnancy. Use with caution, and that actually isn't radical. Even the maker of Tylenol has come out.
It's interesting that you want to focus on that statement because, right, it was Donald Trump himself who said, ignore all the people standing next to me, ignore the doctors, the medical professionals, ignore the statement that my team has put out. I'm going to say whatever I want from up here and ramble for 2 hours. So I think we got to focus on the president's words, and that's what Obama was talking about. Now, back to the rhetoric, right? Donald Trump has since day one been the one stoking the flames here in this country. I remember I worked on the Clinton campaign. He said Second Amendment advocates should consider assassinating her. Donald Trump retweeted a video saying the only good Democrat is a dead Democrat. Donald Trump co-opted Charlie Kirk's funeral service to say that he hates his opponents. So lots of violent rhetoric coming from the White House. And ironically, it was J.D. Vance and RFK Jr., his own cabinet members, that said that he was like America's Hitler. So I don't think he's going to be able to live down the rhetoric and the violence. And of course, spreading medical disinformation is harmful.
Let me bring in Josh there just to react. Kaivan, Josh.
My reaction is that if we're comparing, if we're talking about President Obama, talking about violence against the truth, there was a guy who made a YouTube video who got arrested for being blamed for the Benghazi attack under President Obama, which was known to be false at the time by that administration. So I'll take my counsel elsewhere.
Okay, let's have a look what former Secretary of State and presidential candidate, Hillary Clinton, said. She's hit out at political rhetoric for a rise in violence, and then she can't help herself but blame one side more than the other. Have a listen.
We've got to stop demonizing each other.
Exactly.
Yeah. Now, I think most of that right now in our country's history is coming, you know, from the right.
We've got to stop demonising each other, but most of the rhetoric is coming from the right, Rob. They just can't help themselves, can they?
Look, I think both sides are guilty of this kind of thing. And I would, in her defence, I would say there's something about the liberal project which is all about understanding the opposition. So I think there are sort of structural differences in the way that the two sides see each other and see sides. But come on, everybody, can we just agree to disagree? I think Charlie Kirk, if he's going to have any legacy, should be that we're prepared to sit down and accept each other for what we are.
When did that go, Josh? When did this idea of polite discourse, the idea that you could agree to disagree and walk away from somebody and shake hands and not have that as a reflection of the person, happen?
I believe it died on the afternoon of September 10th when they shot the guy who made a career out of doing that in the throat and killed him in front of his children.
But I think it was before. This has been going on much longer than Charlie Kirk's
Let's be
murder.
really clear, though, you know, and I really have to push back against this both sides argument. I mean, there's heated rhetoric from every side, and you know, there's rhetoric from this corner and that corner, but there's violence overwhelmingly from one side, and it is from the left. And we can go chapter and verse as to why that is and what those episodes are. But there's only one side that has to worry about security, really. When you hold a campus event, leftist groups don't have to worry about security, conservative groups do. Businesses boarded up in November 2020, not because they were worried about the right's reaction to the election. They were worried about the left's. You go on and on and on. Attempts to kill presidents, attempts to kill Supreme Court justices, attempts to kill congressmen. This is the left's record. Charlie Kirk dying in front of an audience is the culmination of a lot of self-talked violence on the left, and we cannot miss that for all the rhetoric. The Miss Havisham of American politics, which is what Hillary Clinton is, she loves to talk about the rhetoric because she cannot talk about the empirical facts, which is that it is one side inflicting violence and not the other.
Kaivan, just respond to that. Isn't that hard to argue with in recent history at the very least?
By a MAGA supporter,
We
but
still got
also
Kaivan.
John is once again lying, which seems to be his habit, because the Cato Institute, a right-wing organization here, just released data that there have been 6 times as many politically driven killings by the right wing in America compared to the left. So that's an indisputable fact. The count is there. Anyone can go look it up. And of course, as I just recounted to you in the previous segment, Donald Trump, the president of the United States, has tried to pour gasoline on this fire. Every other leader is calling to turn the temperature down. Donald Trump and J.D. Vance want to turn it up. So highly concerning. The day after they sort of did all this blame game, there was a bomb threat at the DNC. Of course, that doesn't get the same coverage, but the violence really does come from the right, which of course we know because they led a violent insurrection to try to overthrow our democratic outcome.
Go on, Josh.
I know the author of the Cato study, and if you are characterizing Cato, which is a well-known left libertarian outlet in Washington, D.C., as a right-wing outlet, you don't know very much about the politics you're commenting on.
Well, London Mayor Sadiq Khan, let's have a go back to the UK. London Mayor Sadiq Khan has claimed he's living rent-free in the mind of President Trump following his recent attacks on him. Here is what Sir Sadiq had to say this morning.
It seems to me that I'm living rent-free inside Donald Trump's head.
Why do you think that he's kind of obsessed with you?
I think he's got a crush on me.
That was the Mayor of London sat on a bus doing an interview. Does that make you homesick, Rob Crilly, seeing the inside of that bus?
He was on the top deck by the looks of things as well, the best place to ride. Yeah.
But he said, is that the right way to respond, do you think, to Donald Trump, by just saying, oh, he's got a crush on me, I'm living rent-free in his head?
Well, I mean, there's something to be said to come back punching. I think Donald Trump does respect that. I think it was Sadiq Khan, if memory serves, who started all of this in 2015 by when Trump was talking about a Muslim ban. And they've been at it every couple of years since. I mean, remember on the eve of Trump's, he was just about to land at Stansted. He was on Air Force One in 2019 for his first state visit, and he called Sadiq Khan a stone cold loser. I mean, those two, to be honest, I think quite enjoy it. They need each other. And for us, I mean, it keeps us in business, doesn't it?
What do you make of it, Josh? Because Trump can't, he really hates the man, doesn't he? He doesn't make any bones about it, and the feeling is entirely mutual.
But I think Trump enjoys the contest. I think on the other side, though, there's such a long record of the UK left, and Labour in particular, being fixated on American politics. That's why Labour has traditionally sent people to the United States to canvass for the Democratic nominee every 4 years, which is illegal, by the way. But they do it, and it's because they are, to borrow a British phrase, they are America-brained to the core.
Let me ask Kaivan what he makes of that. Are you familiar with the London Mayor, Sadiq Khan, Kaivan?
You know, certainly there's been some comparisons drawn from him to our Democratic nominee here in New York City. I will say, I mean, I think he's hit the nail on the head, right? Donald Trump has shown himself to be racist and sexist and Islamophobic. It's kind of ironic, though, because if anything comes close to Taliban-style Sharia law, it's Donald Trump's head of the Defense Department tweeting out videos saying that women should lose the right to vote. I haven't seen something like that from any modern society in decades. So highly concerning to see that sort of behavior and rhetoric. And then, of course, you match it up with the crackdown on free speech and trying to put the military in our cities to intimidate those that disagree with him.
Okay, let's move on to another story. Former Democratic presidential candidate Kamala Harris has once again turned her fire on President Biden's inner circle, accusing them of deliberately fueling negative narratives that undermined her standing. This is in her new book. Harris claims that Biden's team seemed willing to do anything to let damaging stories about her take hold, whilst, quote, getting anything positive said about my work or any defense against untrue attacks was almost impossible. She argues this lack of support not only stifled her accomplishments, but also emboldened her critics. Rob, what do you make of that statement from Kamala Harris?
I think it's probably true, but none of this hides from the fact that she was a monumentally bad candidate. Sure, she had no time to prepare her campaign. Sure, there were plenty of people within the Biden team who looked down their noses. But her time in government was characterized by absolute chaos in her office, people quitting all the time. And by the time she ran, I mean, remember famously when she was asked, what would you do different to President Biden? She couldn't think of a single thing. So I think having covered that White House up close, there were definitely plenty of people in Biden's team who didn't like her, but she was also a terrible candidate.
Kaivon, is that your assessment? Was she just not good enough at the job?
I don't think that's true. You know, I do think she was put in a difficult situation. And I do think, you know, when you have a candidate like that, you can easily come up with criticisms. I will say, I think it was pretty obvious that a lot of the people that had criticized her for her first years on the job suddenly were the ones leading the charge for her to replace Joe Biden. And that wasn't credible from the jump. You had folks like Lincoln Project individuals who were at one point calling for Joe Biden to replace her on the ticket, suddenly saying she should be the nominee, and I don't think that was credible. Now, I will say, I do think, obviously, in this country, as in other countries, there is systemic racism and sexism and hurdles that she had to overcome. Of course, she talked about some of those hurdles, even in her own decision-making about picking a running mate, talking about Pete Buttigieg and him being gay and whether the American public would support that. At the same time, it's kind of laughable to talk about her having a problem with personnel when the competition was Donald Trump, who basically ran a revolving door out of his first administration, everybody leaving every 5 seconds. So if that's the criteria, then I don't know where we are.
Okay, just one quick word, Josh.
Look, if Kamala Harris is mad about what Joe Biden did to her reputation, wait till she finds out what Kamala Harris did to her reputation.
Right, let's just tell you at home our top stories over in the UK. Manchester Mayor Andy Burnham has claimed that MPs are privately urging him to challenge Sir Keir Starmer for the leadership of the Labour Party. We will be back with you tomorrow evening. Rob, let me just ask you very briefly, as a journalist here in Washington, D.C., a Brit like you, what's the best bit of being here?
I was hanging out at the White House today, getting up close in a way you never can if you're covering politics back home.
Yeah, and Josh, why is it so great to be here in Washington, the centre of the universe?
I live in Texas, and Texas is the real centre of the universe, and the best thing about Washington is going home.
And we have to go home round about now. Thank you for getting in touch this evening. I'm sorry I haven't got to any of your messages on gbnews.com/yoursay, but I promise you I will go and have a look at them in just a moment. I thank you very much for spending your night with The Late Show Live, and I thank my panel enormously. Kaivon Shroff down the line, Joshua Trevino and Rob Crilly. I will see you back here tomorrow night, midnight in the UK. It will be 7 p.m. here in Washington, D.C. I'll see you then. Good night.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good morning, I'm here with your GB News weather update coming to you from the Met Office. Another fine day for many of us today. In fact, there could be more sunshine on offer than we've seen through some recent days, albeit with a bit of a breeze towards the southeast and also the far northwest. Otherwise, generally light winds and, like I said, lots of sunshine, lots of blue sky, just a little bit of cloud bubbling up here and there. With the sunshine, where you get it, it is going to feel relatively warm. Temperatures peaking in the high teens, possibly even just about scraping into the low 20s Celsius. Obviously feeling a bit fresher towards the southeast and northwest where we have that brisk breeze. Later on as we go through this evening, staying largely fine. There's some clouds nearby to the far northwest of Scotland, but not really expecting that to make much headway in. So really it's going to be a dry end to the day across Scotland with some late sunshine as well. A similar story across much of Northern Ireland and across the bulk of England and Wales as well. Some late sunshine here, albeit with a little bit of cloud perhaps pushing across parts of Lincolnshire and some thicker cloud around Kent. Maybe one or two showery bursts mixed in with this as well. Then as we go overnight, a little bit more patchy cloud will come in from the east at times. Most places though stay dry with clear skies, and similar to recent nights with the clear skies and mostly light winds, again we're going to see our temperatures taking a bit of a drop. Towns and cities, yes, generally holding up in the mid to high single figures, but away from the more built up areas, temperatures will drop close to, if not a little bit below freezing. So a fresh, chilly, maybe even frosty start to the day for many of us tomorrow. Then through tomorrow, more cloud coming in from eastern parts, and where it's thick enough, a few spots of rain here and there. Further west, staying dry, brighter, and often quite sunny, but worth bearing in mind there is a band of rain out to the west of us. This is going to arrive in time for the weekend, so most of us will see a bit of rain on Saturday. Temperatures tomorrow, well, not quite as high as today because of the thicker cloud pushing in.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
I'm Andrew Pearce. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world. Am I allowed to talk now? No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start. No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up? About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay.